I didn't post yesterday, and now I've got people asking me if I'm okay. I'm not, but I guess at the same time I am, because I'm still alive. I hurt myself yesterday morning while watching the show. I couldn't take it anymore, and I cut myself. And originally I filmed it. I was going to upload it so that Royce and JJ and Adonis could see what they were causing. And throughout the day, I started to upload it a couple of times, and then I put it back and I started again, and I stopped it, and I realized that it wouldn't do any good, because that's what they want. They want to hurt me. They're going to keep saying they don't, but they wouldn't be laughing at somebody with severe mental health issues if they didn't want to hurt them. When they brought my family back into my life, that was the point that it got to be really too much for me. And they don't understand what they're doing. People who run away from abusive families, they're not doing it for no reason. There are so many that think that you just need to reconnect these black sheep with their families, and then things will get better, but they don't understand that the black sheep is the way that they are because of the family. They don't understand how abusive this family is, or how much they want to hurt me, how much they always have. They're likable. My family is full of very likable, manipulative, cruel human beings that I have been trying to get away from for years. There's over 36 people in my family that I am afraid of having in my life. Not because I'm just such a bad person, because they have been abusive. You can't understand what it's like unless you grew up in that type of life, in that type of family. My Aunt Kathy, I don't know what she did to her children. And it wasn't that she beat me. It was that she ignored my problems and laughed at me and mocked me for having them. My parents were abusive. You can believe that or not, but I am telling you that my parents were abusive. My mother was an alcoholic. My father was always angry. My brother was born handicapped because my father beat my mother so badly while she was pregnant with him. And then my mother's sisters saw her in the hospital, knew what happened, and it did nothing about the fact that she was going back home with the man that did that to her. In this family, it was just so easy to turn away and pretend like nothing ever happened. My father beat my mother every single night. I was 10 years old, laying in my bed at night, listening to my father beat my mother, listening to my mother scream and cry, and knowing that there was nothing I could do because I was a child. My older sister dated men who were in the military that were afraid of my father. One particular Christmas, she brought home a new boyfriend who was in the Marines. And about halfway through the night, he snuck out the window and left because he couldn't take my father's fighting out in the other room anymore. Like, this isn't... Y'all don't know him, so you don't understand. My dad was cruel. And everybody always just said, well, that's the way it is. My grandmother knew what was happening in that home, and she kept taking me back to it and leaving me there, knowing that they were molesting me. She would go over there to pick me up and see her daughter bruised, and she would just pick me up and turn around and walk away, knowing that she was leaving her there with that monster. Her sisters would come and see her, and eventually they would stop coming to see her. By the time I was a teenager, there was nobody coming over to visit my mother. She was alone to be beat by my father, with the whole family knowing it was happening and just living their lives because it wasn't their business. It wasn't their problem. It messed me up. And because nobody else was messed up by it, they believed that I couldn't have been messed up by it. I was depressed as a child. Schools wanted to help me, and nobody was allowed because my parents were in control and they could turn down the help. When I got older, my family would just say that I was making things up. I was making things worse than it really was. It wasn't that bad listening to my mother being beat night after night after night. It wasn't that bad growing up with a handicapped brother that I knew his father was the reason he was that way. I never had anybody in my family that I could talk to and confide in except my grandmother. And we talked to each other a lot. That's how I know so many stories from my family. It's because my grandmother talked. People get upset with me for talking so much about what bothers me. They don't understand that that's kind of a lot of what PTSD is. There's so much pain inside me that needs to come out. And I have nobody that I can talk to and confide in. And now people are looking at that pain and just laughing at me and mocking it. And it's too much, and it makes me feel like nobody is ever going to care. It makes me feel like nobody is ever going to see me. They're always going to think that I'm just making things up for attention. They fully believe that I love this, that I love being laughed at and being pushed to hurt myself. I wake up every day wishing that I had died in my sleep.
And I have for a long time. Y'all tell me to just focus on other things. Well, how? How do I focus on other things when the first thing I see in the morning when I wake up is men laughing at me? And there are thousands of supporters egging them on, pushing me to hurt myself, commenting hundreds of times that they want me to cut myself, that they want me to die, telling me that I abused my grandmother. Y'all don't understand the relationship me and my grandmother had. Nobody ever understood me or my grandmother. And the family wants to just forget all about it and silence me because I won't stop talking. They want to call me a drug addict because it makes me less believable. They say everything is a lie, but it's not. And I'm alone, so I can't defend myself. Nobody is going to be honest about what my life was like, because they want to blame me and make it my own fault for the way I am. They want to laugh at me because I'm sad and say, well, everybody's sad, get over it. This is a sadness, it's not just sadness. This is a sadness that has been eating me alive. And I have moments where I start doing better and then it comes back. Just a few weeks ago, I made a video about how things get better. They really do if you just fight hard enough. And then this happened. I just got my own apartment. I had a chance to actually be happy, you know? And now these men are just laughing at me every day and trying to reconnect me with my abusive family, calling them and taking their word when they don't know what these people are done. They don't care. They only care that they hate me, and so they're going to be believed. And I'm going to not be believed, because there's more of them saying that I'm lying. And I want to die, because I don't think it's ever going to stop. Not now that they've brought my family back. Reconnecting an abuse victim with their abusers, because you just can't fathom that it could really have been as bad as it was, is the most heartless and cruel thing that anybody can do in the thought process of doing good. Everybody tells me that I just make it worse than it was. How can it be worse than growing up with a handicapped brother because of the abuse your father put on your mother? How can it be worse than listening to your mother cry and scream and be beat night after night after night? How could it be worse than 18 years of head lice and not having clean clothes and not being treated like a regular person in the family? Sarah said that she hated me as a kid because everything at Mima's was mine. But it was. I didn't have toys at home. She did. When she came to visit Grandma's, it was, for her, it was going to visit Grandma. For me, it was home. It was my home. Those were my toys. My clothes. And it had to be communal because it was Grandma's. And if I went home, I didn't have clothes and toys or love or anything else. And everybody just wants to hate me. If she's so mad I didn't want to share my things at Mima's when I was a kid, but then she'd go home and they had everything. They had computers and video games and everything a kid could want. But she's gonna hold a grudge against me for my Legos. I lied when I said it gets better. Because it doesn't. Every time it starts to get better, somebody will take it away. And the sadness never really ends. It just sometimes fades enough that I can feel happiness. But it's never really gone. What really is the point of living when that's all you have? When it's just sadness and everybody just laughs at it because they can't understand it. They're not ever gonna understand it. My family has been laughing at me for crying my whole life. And now I have proof that the rest of the world is just laughing at me too. And I'm supposed to easily just keep on with my life, knowing that everybody wants me to hurt and everybody wants to laugh at me. I don't know how.